Discover connection, awaken sacredness, become empowered. Join us for our show on Blog Talk Radio. Discover your spiritual gifts live.
Well, welcome to Discover Your Spiritual Gifts show number 48. We're your hosts, Dave and
Vialet.
Our guest today is C. James Jensen. Jim Jensen began his career as a salesman with Encyclopedia Britannica in his senior year of college. Within 7 years, he had become international sales manager in charge of worldwide sales. At the age of 28, he became senior vice president and CEO of Great Books in the Western World, a division of Encyclopedia Britannica. In this same year, 1969, Jim and his wife, Jeri, attended a 4-day seminar that would have an incredible impact on their lives forever. As is written in the introduction, Jim became both a voracious student and, ultimately, teacher of many of the principles written in his book, Expand the Power of Your Subconscious Mind. Jim also became president and CEO of 2 additional companies that each became the leading company within its respective industry. Jim attributes much of the success of those companies to the management and employees embracing many of the principles taught in his book. Today, Jim provides executive coaching, consulting, and advisory services to emerging growth and mid-sized companies. He is an active member of the World Presidents Organization, serves as a life director for the Institute of Noetic Sciences, and is a member of the board of directors as well as chairman of the executive committee of the board of Aspen Group Incorporated. Well, welcome, Jim. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Well, go ahead and tell us about your background, how you got involved in the subconscious mind. For a lot of people, that sounds somewhat contradictory to somebody who apparently is a businessman and very pragmatic. Sometimes those, for some people, don't feel like they fit together.
It's a very good question and very good for our interview. As you mentioned, I had an early start and did well. And people would always say, Jim, what do you attribute to your success? And I'd give, words like, well, gosh, I work hard. I'm very enthusiastic. And, but in hindsight, nothing that would change them. And when I went, we were living in Australia when I was 26, 27 years old. And our friends from Seattle, where we're from, said, you have to go through this 4-day seminar called Omega. And when we got back to Chicago, our corporate headquarters, in 1969, my wife and I flew to San Diego and we went through this 4-day seminar called Omega, taught by its founder, John Boyle. And I went, I don't believe this. For the first time, I understood the mechanics of performance, that there were specific tools that we could use that are not taught in school. And I affectionately went up to John Boyle when the seminar was over and poked him in the chest and said, someday I'm going to teach your seminar and someday I'm going to own your company. And yeah, he thought, right, kid. Both those things came to pass. And I used to say to John, where did you learn all this material? And all he would comment was that he'd studied with a fellow by the name of Dr. Joseph Murphy. He didn't tell me he'd written a book. There was no internet at that time. I couldn't Google Joseph Murphy. And I just thought, wow, he had to be some guy. And it wasn't until 2005, we were living in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And one of our fellow workers came into my office. He put a book on my desk. He said, I've heard you speak, and I think you might like this book. And it was called The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Dr. Joseph Murphy. And I thought, could this be the same Joseph Murphy? And it was. And his teachings are brilliant. And I got so engaged in the subject matter that I was constantly going out to different seminars to enhance my understanding of these tools of performance. And by the way, this is not just performance in one's work, but in relationships and parenting and teaching and coaching, our personal health, all aspects and elements of our life. And I thought as I learned more and more in my association with the Institute of Noetic Sciences and other groups that there's an opportunity for today's learned people in this particular area to bring Dr. Murphy's teachings into the 21st century. Thus the title, Expand the Power of Your Subconscious Mind. And for those that choose to buy and read the book, part 1 of the book is all of Dr. Murphy's original text in his book. His book is in public domain, and we were able to just print the whole thing, and it's as he wrote it, and it's phenomenal. And then part 2 is what's happened since then, and I refer to so many different sources of people that have helped bring these teachings again into the 21st century. Thus the title, Expand the Power of Your Subconscious Mind.
That sounds great. Well, tell us about what are the revelations on how your subconscious mind works. You've worked with this for so many years. What does it look like in terms of how it manages your life, directs your life, affects your life?
A great question. Couldn't be a better question. Most of us in school today are really not taught the true relationship, the expanded relationship between the conscious and the subconscious area of the mind. Most people think of the conscious mind of that which we're doing right now. We're thinking, we're talking. I would say, again, most people are not consciously aware that we talk at a rate of 150 to 300 words a minute, over 50,000 thoughts a day. So people right now, as they're listening to the program, they're processing what they hear about the program, but they're thinking, what are we doing tonight? You know, where am I going for dinner? All these other thoughts just keep going. Now, the subconscious in most of our schools today is still taught that the primary functions of the subconscious are to handle the bodily functions. It grows our hair, our nails, digests our food, will heal a wound. But what is not taught in most areas is that the subconscious is also a servo mechanism that operates 24/7, carrying out the instructions given to it by the conscious area of the mind. And it's totally non-judgmental. So if you say, you know, I always so nervous when I get in front of a group and I foul up and lose my place. We got it, boss. We'll take care of that. We understand that. We'll make sure that's what happens. And the analogy that Dr. Murphy uses in his book, he said, visualize an ocean liner going across the sea, and the conscious area of the mind would be like the captain of the ship up in the helm of the ship, marking out signals or, you know, instructions to the crew, full speed ahead, port starboard, 10 degrees north. And the crew is like the subconscious down in the hold of the ship, below the water level, can't even see where the ship is going. And they just say, aye, sir, carrying out the orders, excuse me, not minding whether they run the ship into the rocks, in another vessel, or get it safely to its destination. So the more we really watch and see and observe and understand what this subconscious part of us is, we can begin then to instruct it differently in ways that we want our behavior to be or to change, you know, from the way it might have been in the past. And there's specific tools that we teach in the book in terms of how to do that and change some of the data that's stored in our subconscious that may no longer be serving us well. And that's probably the biggest part of the book, is for the readers to, again, fully get this understanding. And again, not just for our business, but for parenting, for teaching, you know, for coaching our kids, the people we love, our fellow workers in the business world, and in relationships. That's the essence of the book.
So much seems to be happening with the COVID on relationships. Can you talk a little bit more about that and give us some examples of how this works with relationships?
Well, I think not just with relationships with ourselves. I have a placard on my dresser in my bedroom with the letters FEAR, fear. And then underneath it says false expectations appearing real. And I think that what COVID has done is it's induced really a global kind of consciousness, of which the level of fear has certainly risen in the minds of many, many people. And I'm not saying wrongly that people should be cautious in what they do, but it has impacted their thinking and their behavior, and they're more important how they feel. They're strung out, they're anxious, they're whatever. And we also show in the book and teach that it's important for people to understand the only time there is now. There is no past, and there is no future. There's only now. But oftentimes we will take a past experience and we keep it in our brain now, and we play it over and over. Now, that disrupts our present feeling of comfort, and as opposed to saying, well, that's what's something that happened in the past, and let's leave it in the past, and we can plan for our future nows, and when they come, they will be now. And I like to use the analogy that in the movies, oftentimes at the end of the movie, they'll do the outtakes, and they'll show all the scenes where the key actors maybe fouled up and missed something wrong, and the audience laughs like crazy. But who laughs the hardest are the actors themselves. It's simply a mistake. Take two, take three. Mm-hmm. So rather than, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't be very mindful of the COVID and keep our distance and wear our masks and do whatever we need to do. But I think that everybody has a different level of discomfort, a different level of how they're accepting this, even though you might see that their behavior externally seems to be the same in terms of their distancing and masks and whatever. But internally, I mean, some people are just afraid to even open the front door, you know, and I mean, and that's their choice. And I totally respect their choice, as we should. So I think that, you know, this will overcome. I mean, it's been a long haul, and we're all waiting for the proper medication and vaccinations and whatever to get this behind us. And I haven't given this a lot of thought, but I'm hopeful that as we start to go on the downward slope of the curve in terms of the number of incidents, and we start to get this behind us, there'll be some tremendous opportunities for growth ahead of us. And it's unfortunate that we've had to go through all this, but I guess that's part of why we're here, and we'll get through it and we'll move on. So I personally, I'm conscious, I'm aware of it. Our kids are, because they have kids, are more confined to their homes. And my wife and I had Thanksgiving, just the two of us, probably for the first time since we've had a family. But we're very respectful, and our kids sent the food to us, and we all talked, and we did a Zoom call, and so that's the way it is. But I am still very happy and comfortable and at peace, but I'm also aware of the environment and pay attention to it and respect the opinions and actions of others and honor them.
Well, I have to agree with you on something. Obviously, I'm not quite old enough to have been there. I've talked to my dad when he was alive about what happened after World War II, you know, to the economy and the boom we had going into the 50s. And I just perceive that so many people out there, yeah, there are a lot of people who've lost their jobs. There are a lot of people who are laid off or furloughed, and but I also see a ton of people who are sitting on their money because they have nothing to do with it. You can't go travel. You can't go out and buy services that you know are you know just your disposable income. And so I think once we come out from under the rainstorm and walk outside and the sun's shining again, yeah, I think we're going to have a tremendous economic boom. And I think it's going to lift all ships in the harbor, you know, when the tide comes in.
Well stated, and I completely agree with what you said. And I might add for our audience, because a lot of them are spending more time at home. It's a wonderful time to read a really good book.
And that book would be?
I can think of one. It's called Expand the Power.
See my cats? I've been reading the books. Yeah, I have all my.
Yeah, I've got one. I've got one right next to me. Let me also suggest for those that would like to know more about this, to go to our website, which is simply my name, all one word, lowercase, C. James Jensen, JENSEN.com. CJamesJensen.com, and our interview will be under interviews in that, with your permission, and others that we've had, and a lot of really good information that I think would be helpful to the people now and under the terms of what we're going through. And so I guess we take advantage if we have more time to do things that we wouldn't normally do, and how do we benefit from that rather than just sitting around and worry ourselves to death? That's not going to do us much good.
So what are the common mistakes that people make in working with their subconscious? Because I know the last few years there's the law of attraction and positive affirmation and setting intentions, right, that are aligned with this somewhat. Where do people make mistakes and really changing their lives and working with their subconscious in a positive way?
Well, thank you. That's a really good question, and it's a very much part of what we talk about in the book. And a primary tool to work with in the development of achieving goals are affirmations. And I've had people say to me, gosh, I've tried affirmations, they just don't work for me. And I say, well, what do you do? And so one person said, well, I wanted to lose some weight, and I developed the affirmation, I'm not overweight, I'm not overweight, I'm not overweight. You know, well, that, what's the picture there? Being overweight. You know, why not I look good and feel good at and state a number, you know, of the weight that somebody's, I went through this actually. And there's 3 steps in the affirmation process, and we outline these in detail in the book. And the first is to create a statement, a personal statement in the first person present tense, as though we have already achieved it. Not I'm going to be or I want to be. And then 2, and a lot of people miss this, is we need to visualize what that looks like, achieving that now. And then the 3rd is we have a feeling, a good feeling of having accomplished that. And I went through this after I had learned this material and was using affirmations. And I had, I don't know, maybe been traveling a lot and not working out as much and eating a lot of rich food, but I'd kind of slowly over a couple of years put on some additional pounds. And my good friend and physician where I get my annual physical said, you know, Jim, you might want to lose 25 pounds. And I looked at him and I said, you know, I think you're right. That's great. Great. Thank you. I said, I haven't been thinking about that, but thank you. And my weight at that time was 225 pounds. So I created an affirmation. I look good and feel good at 200 pounds. Not I am going to. I look good and feel good at 200 pounds. And then I'd create an image and I'd see myself walking into my office, having lost that weight in my new suit, and my employees saying, Jim, you look so great since you've lost all that weight. And then I feel good about having achieved that. And I'm telling you, the system works. I didn't make it up. I didn't create it. It's in the book. And Dr. Murphy is, you know, emphasizes this. But I would think that that is a great take home for people that do choose to read the book if they haven't used affirmations in the past, or if their use of affirmations hasn't worked well for them. So develop a statement, first person present tense, as though we'd already achieved it. Create a visualization of what that looks like, and then how we feel about that. And that becomes instructions at a deeper level over and over and over to the subconscious. And they say, aye, aye, boss, we got it now. This is not an excuse to move our bed next to the refrigerator. So we do need to make some changes in what we do. But if the desire and the value of having made that physical change in our body is important to us, then we do what we need to do. And so that's affirmations are a big tool, and visualization is incredibly important to us.
How important is it to really pay attention to your thoughts? Because you talked about how many thoughts we have going on in a day, how much is happening. And I know in my experience, a lot of people are running on autopilot. They're not even paying attention to what's going on in their thoughts. How important is it for us to be paying attention to what's going on in our thoughts and being sent to our subconscious?
Well, if we love ourselves unconditionally, just the way we are, then, and we choose not to want to make any changes or feel the need to, that's fine. Then I can love you, unconditionally, just the way you are. And it's not my position to judge others and what they're doing or not doing. But if people are happy with a lot of what they're doing in their life, but if there's areas of their lives they feel they could change or improve, then we provide the tools to do that may not have worked as well for those same people having tried that in the past. And so I think that the subconscious is just so incredibly fantastic. And I, every day and every night before I go to bed or go to sleep, and when I get up in the morning, I take about 15 minutes and I do a meditation. I don't take a lot of time. I take 5 to 7 minutes and get myself really centered and kind of blocking out all of the activity that I have coming up for the day so it doesn't interfere with what I'm doing. It's like reprogramming a computer. And then I have my affirmations, and we don't want to have 50 or 100 affirmations, that would be overkill, but if there's 6 to 10 things that I'm working on that I'd like to change or improve or grow in that area or whatever, then I go through those first person present tense as though I've already achieved them. And then I just simply say thank you to my subconscious and say, I appreciate your guidance, your help, and I know we'll achieve all these things and get about my day.
That's awesome. Awesome. Well, I know in your book you talk about wealth, people that, don't believe that they're worthy of this or worthy of that, and how that blocks them, how you can really use this to improve and become more prosperous. Can you talk to us a little bit about that as well?
Well, I think that we want to look at all areas of our life and not, a lot of people place a lot of focus just say on making more money. Well, if they start to achieve that, but their relationship falls apart because they have been acting differently in their relationship, say with their partner or spouse, and if they're not figuring, we really want to look at the whole life, not just the material elements of our lives, but is there ways I could instruct or verbalize things to my children, depending on their ages, that might be more beneficial than the way that I have been doing that? To go to a young son, 7 or 8 years old, and say, Johnny, you're just lousy in math. You're just like your brother. He's lousy at math too. And here's some little kid that's looking up at, dad, who is the God in his world, or mom. and so then with his own self-talk, when he confronts anything to do, I'm just making an example of math, he said, well, I'm lousy at math anyway. I'm just not good at it. And the subconscious says, great, we'll make sure that's the way you perform. So I think that we've all have a lot of wonderful gifts we've been given in our family, by our teachers, by older siblings, that have helped make a big part of who we are. There are some things that data input that we've had along the way that we may choose to change. In the last chapter of the book, I say, moving on, an invitation to the path of enlightenment. That's the title of the chapter. And I quote Lao Tzu, the famous Chinese philosopher, who says, in the process of learning, something is added every day. In the process of enlightenment, something is taken away every day. And as Dr. Murphy states, to visualize a tugboat going through the water, excuse me, pulling a big barge of garbage, and all the energy that this tugboat is expending to pull this huge barge of garbage. In that particular example, all we have to do is just cut the line between the tugboat and the barge, and the tugboat moves effortlessly through the water. So are there things that we're still carrying around from the past that are influencing our inner peace, our happiness, our ability to perform in certain areas of our life that we'd like to change? And if we keep telling ourselves, I've never been good at da-da-da-da-da-da-da, so wait a minute, time out, time out. My wife used to just have a huge fear of snakes. And if she saw one on a TV screen, she'd turn the other way. And and something had happened in her childhood. Somebody had chased her, some nice young guy named Jimmy probably, chased her down the street, dangling a little garden or whatever. But if we took, let's say 3 people in an audience, and I said, Mary, Sally, Betty, can you come up and sit around this table? And I'm going to say, look, today we're going to talk about snakes. And they would each have a different thought pertaining to that. And I'd say, by the way, we're going to talk today about the garden snake. And contrary to some people's thoughts, the garden snake does not have any teeth, cannot bite you, it's not venomous, it can't infect you, it can't strangle you. And so do you understand intellectually why there would be no reason for anybody to have the fear of a garden snake? And all 3 acknowledge, yep. I say, great, because I brought little Sammy with me here, and I reach down and I pick it up, and I put this garden snake on the table, and Mary just freaks out. She sees this, lets out a scream, runs down the aisle, goes right through the door of the auditorium. If the door's locked, all we see is an image of Mary where she went right through the door. Sally, on the other hand, was raised on a farm, loves animals. And what do you think her favorite animal is? It's a snake. She has a pet boa. In fact, she got a 2-story condo, so there was a balcony or a railing where this thing could do its exercises. She leans toward it, picks it up, pets it, caresses it. And the other lady is just totally nonplussed, like, when are we going to move on and quit talking about snakes? So we can look at how we feel about things, and if they're not the way, if they don't bring us peace and happiness and comfort, and are they thoughts that we may have developed along the way, and rather than just saying, well, that's just the way I am, I've always been that way, well, that's fine if you want to be, but if you want to change it and let go of some of that, think again of the example of getting rid of the garbage in the book. What are those things that no longer serve us well? And so we provide the tools to do that and to make those changes. And we don't need to be judgmental or harsh on ourselves and say, well, I'm such an idiot for thinking that way. No, you're not. That's just the way you used to be, because the only time there is now. And so I think those are some areas that are beneficial to the readers of Dr. Murphy's and the work that we've created.
Well, that's great. We're going to take a short break here. We'll be right back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Violet Rain, Master and Teacher of Sacred Priesthood in the Mystery Schools here at Discover Your Spiritual Gifts. This is a program that I offer about once a year. We take on students to start this program. It's an 18-month program, which means there are 13 classes. We teach a class once a month, and we skip months with holidays. And on this path, men and women can come together to become sacred priests and sacred priestesses of the Order of Melchizedek. The Order of of Melchizedek is the oldest sacred priesthood on this planet. It was mentioned in the Bible and still exists today. This is about walking a path of beauty, sacredness, and service. It's about learning how to be a magical creator of your own life and using the universal mysteries to create whatever type of life that you're looking for. This path is filled with magic, about learning prosperity, about creating, about sacred geometry, about Kabbalah, about learning about the ascended masters, the archangels, the elementals, including dragons and fairies and unicorns and the mermaids. It brings all that universal wisdom together to create a way for everyone to have that joyful and abundant life that they've always wanted. I hope that you will check out our website under classes and look for Mystery School or look for Sacred Priesthood and find out more about these classes and what we have to offer. I look forward to seeing you in class, and I hope to see you really soon at Discover Your Spiritual Gifts.
Well, welcome back. We have our guest today, C. James Jensen, Jim Jensen, who's written a book, Expand the Power of Your Subconscious Mind, with a lot of very helpful information on how you can change your life and move forward in wonderful and positive ways. Something I'd like to talk about, I don't know if you've worked with it, and that's the concept of addictions. A lot of people have substance abuse problems in various forms, and I know so much of that is a mix of habit and other things. How does this work with people who say, you know, I don't want to be an alcoholic anymore, or I don't want to be stuck on opiates? How does this blend into, I'll say, some type of treatment program or something for them to move forward?
Well, certainly it doesn't mean that they should discontinue seeing professionals in this space that can help them, whether it's chemically with certain medications or whatever, but to also develop an affirmation and get used to using the words "I used to have an insatiable thirst," no pun intended, to drink alcohol. I enjoy the benefits. That would be the proper way in developing an affirmation. I enjoy the benefits of being a non-drinker of alcohol, or maybe I just want to reduce substantially I enjoy the benefits of being a very modest consumer of alcoholic beverages. If I choose to have a drink, great, but I do not want to order a lot of drinks, and I'd rather have more days in which I do not take alcohol at all. I have no need to. And so we can create some affirmations around that, but it becomes part of our self-talk. But it has to be important to the person that wants to make this change, that they're not making it because their business partner, their spouse, their mother, their father, somebody says, you've got to do this. You've got to quit, drinking so much. And I'm only mentioning drinking because you made that as an example. But whatever it is. And so what are the benefits? And, we take time by ourselves and say, what are the benefits? Are there 3 or 4 things that I'd really like to improve in my life? Not 20 or 30 or 40, forget that. What are some things I might want to, maybe historically I have found in groups, I might, let's say, dominate conversations and don't give other people the opportunity to speak. We had a lady come by recently who we had met, very nice lady, and she wanted to meet us personally, and she came to our home, and we had a delightful couple hours together. But I will tell you that in the time that we spoke, I don't think she ever stopped, or the time we were together, she did. She just never stopped talking. And it didn't make me, want to spend more time with her. I love her unconditionally. I have no reason not to. But if she had asked me, what are some things that she might want to look at and consider, it might be to increase her listening skills and be more participative in the conversation. So if we The good thing is that if we identify some things that we like to change, we don't have to say, well, I've just always been that way. That's the way I am. That's an affirmation. The subconscious has got a boss. We'll make sure that's just the way you are. No reason to change. But when you say, and we can love ourselves unconditionally without beating ourselves up, because there's a couple of things that we finally have thought we're going to get rid of or change or whatever. And I love myself unconditionally. And I love that. And we use the example of whether it's imbibing in alcohol or any other kind of behavior that would not be beneficial. You say, yeah, I think I'd like to kind of let go of that. And that no longer has to be part of who I am. And so we develop the statement, first person present tense, as though we had already achieved that change, even though our current behavior might show that we're still doing what we used to do, but we're growing in that area. We love ourselves unconditionally. So just because we've got some new tools, it doesn't mean that the first night that we use them, we wake up the next morning and everything's changed. We say, well, those tools don't work. Okay, that's fine. That's a statement, that's an instruction to the subconscious that those tools don't work. They'll make sure they don't. So, but loving ourselves unconditionally and having unconditional warm regards for all people at all times are two of the most powerful affirmations we can use. And when we say we have unconditional warm regards for all people at all times, certainly if a mass murderer or somebody, we couldn't really have unconditional warm regards for. So we use statements like that for emphasis. And we look for the joy and the contribution and the abundance of the other people and what they're doing. And is there ways I can be of benefit to them? Can I help them? But it started with those are the first two, I think, most important affirmations. I love myself or like myself unconditionally. Number two, I have unconditional warm regards for all people at all times. And again, we use the word all for emphasis because there are some people's actions that we just say, I'm sorry, I can't get by that one. We'll just let that one be over here on the side. So.
Well, I used to joke with some people in church. I said, the Bible says you're supposed to love everybody. It didn't say, but you have to like them too. So
that's interesting. That's a great statement.
Yeah. It's. I want to go back to.
I don't necessarily need to like what they're doing.
Yeah. It's. I don't have to. Well, something I run into a lot, and I try to explain it to people. There's so many people who walk around eggshells saying, I'm not supposed to judge others. All these admonitions in the Bible, don't judge. Supposedly that's reserved for God to be in judgment. And I said, look, there's a big difference between being objective and being judgmental. If I look out the door and I see a guy hitting another guy with a stick, it's objective to say, this is wrong. This is not a good thing. I'm not judging and saying, old Bill there with the stick ought to go burn in hell. I'm not saying that, but objectively I can say this is a bad situation and it needs to be stopped and the behavior needs to be discontinued. That's not judgmental. That's being objective about our current state of society. And a lot of people are so nervous and scared to inject this. Like, no, you can say this is not healthy, this is not good, that person should not be doing that, and that's not judgmental. That's just an observation about how our society works and how healthy people act.
Well, I think that's well stated, and you just created, when you were talking, I was thinking of to be gentle and love ourselves unconditionally. So that the changes we want to make don't have to be made before dinner. If I'm going to make some major changes in my home, and I've got a year's plan to make those changes, and I say, well, I'm going to first go buy a toolkit because I'm going to need that. So now I have the toolkit, and then I can prioritize where I want to make these changes, but I still don't walk by some place on the wall that needs fixing and say, yuck, you're terrible. Hey, I'm going to get to you and we'll get that taken care of and get that fixed, but it's not going to be today. And so, what the teachings of Dr. Murphy provide to the reader, and what the reader of this book will get, is really a toolkit with expanded tools that they either previously had not been introduced to, or may have had, but they didn't know they had them or know how they work. And it just becomes so much fun. And I get all the time. I just sent out a press release on my book to a bunch of friends, some whom I haven't talked to for 10 or 20 years. I went through with my assistant through my database and said, send this to da, 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 da. I'm getting emails back saying, I thank you so much for this. And they're already getting benefits from the material, and they're buying the book, and some have read the book. There's simply a great big toolkit out there that can help us in all areas of our life. And this toolkit predominantly is not taught in our education system or our schools.
Well, I think it falls into a lot of categories. For example, people are okay with yoga as long as it's taught as, well, this is an exercise system that has stretching. If you say, the original purpose of yoga and the true intent of yoga is to prepare you for enlightenment, a la an Eastern system, then suddenly people get very nervous and shaky about it. Does this affect my Christian beliefs here in the U.S.? What does this mean for me? And I see the same thing happening with the subconscious, where people get shaky and nervous about it, especially if you said, this ought to be taught in a school, that kids should learn how to do this, because they learn a lot of lessons that are counterproductive, such as, I still remember a global one from when I was a kid where, well, girls don't do well in math and boys don't do well in language arts, so it's expected that boys won't, they'll get B's and C's on their report cards on English, and the girls will be struggling in math. And it was just an expectation. And to me, that's a very false expectation, and it falls exactly along the line of what you're saying, that you hear that message enough times and you just buy into it and you reinforce it. And so things like that need to be changed, and we've started coming up with STEM programs to help kids excel in other areas where traditionally our expectations weren't very high. And so I think a lot needs to change in education, and about what are our expectations, what are our behaviors, what are the subtle messages that we give kids about whether they're going to succeed, whether they're going to fail.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. And we get so much data, when we're growing up, and this is good, this is bad, watch out for those kinds of people. And I mean, I've often said, how many people do you think that vote Republican, their parents voted Republican? And how many do you think that voted Democrats, their parents voted Democrats? And, I'm just using that as an example. Mm-hmm. And it's okay that they do what their parents thought would be best for them. But as we grow along the timeline of life, we want to continue to evaluate, okay, here's what I'm thinking now. Am I looking at this the best way? Am I conditioned in a way that I would not see this any other way? Or maybe that wasn't a good example with Republicans or Democrats through an election. But we do get a lot of early data from well-intending parents, and we have to remember that they probably got those belief systems from their parents. And at what point along the way do we see that some deep beliefs in certain areas may no longer be serving us well, or the way that we had hoped they would, and can we make a change? And if we want to make that change, and we see the value of making that change, then our book provides the tools on how to do that more effortlessly without the pain and the discomfort of having to go through therapy and other forms of change and discipline and whatever. So, yeah.
Well, I can look back at other family messages. I came from a long line of people who worked very hard. My both sets of grandparents were very fully employed, working a lot of extra time. And my dad ended up with a lesson from his parents that make hay while the sun shines.
Yeah.
And, you know, if somebody offers you work, offers you another part-time job, take it. You just never know when you're going to lose opportunities.
Right.
And my dad ended up being a workaholic. He viewed life when I was growing up as he was the breadwinner. He was supposed to be out making money. My mom was supposed to be raising the kids. And my dad was a management consultant, so frequently he was on the road. And when he traded that in, he became an Episcopal priest. And so suddenly he's out, 24 hours a day helping other people's families. He's not working with our family. And my parents got divorced when I was around 11. And it took a long time for my dad to deprogram. And finally in his 60s, when he was married to his third wife and starting to raise a couple little kids, which, wow, hats off to him. I can't see myself in my 60s raising newborns. But he finally backed off and started retraining himself that that's not the way to go through life. It takes away from the enjoyment of life for yourself and for others. And but those were all messages that came through from the mindset of the late 1800s, early 1900s was this is the way you should be. And a 6-day work week of 10-hour days is fine and expected. And we look at our quality of life now, we say, gosh, how did they do that?
Well, and we have so many tools today, other tools that this,
Mm-hmm.
That we didn't have. We didn't have, when I was growing up, computers and be able to Google things and other ways. We had, data was not as plentiful as it is today. This whole Zoom system is just so fascinating. And what a wonderful tool during this cabin thing that we're going through.
Yes.
And we had a big Zoom call with our family on Thanksgiving Day. And it was just fantastic. It was good.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't used to have that. So we can take advantage of so many wonderful tools today. And when's the only time there is now. And the only time is now. So what Dad and grandparents did and everybody else is fine. I love to hear all those stories. But what do I have in my toolkit here that maybe I'm not using as much or as well as I should?
Mm-hmm.
Very true. Very true. And as you guys talk about, Democrats or Republicans, I think of cars. There are families that only drive Fords.
Yeah.
Only drive Chryslers, only drive this or that, and it's passed. So all those things that our belief systems or likes or dislikes that our family, like maybe your mother didn't like broccoli, so you never got served broccoli, so you didn't like broccoli. You may not have ever tasted broccoli, but you've got this thought process that broccoli is bad, right? So there's all those things that as you get older, you're like, is that really true? Do I really not like broccoli? Do I really have to drive a Chrysler? Do I really need to do this or that? It's really good to kind of stand back and look at that. I know in your book, earlier you talked about how Dr. Joseph Murphy started this, but how things have moved forward or expanded in the 21st century. What has expanded in that? How we use it? What have you found? Is there any changes from that original or any expansion on that you're seeing today?
Yes, there is. There is so much expanded knowledge and information about how we work, who we are. I think one of the elements that we introduce is the third area of the mind, which we have not spoken of about in this talk today, but is the supra conscious. So we have the conscious, the subconscious, and the supra, not super, but supra conscious. And the idea behind the supra conscious is that it has access to all data in the universe. And that's a big statement and something that a lot of people, may have had some problems in the past understanding, but we use it effectively in problem solving. And we identify in the book 5 steps for achieving the solution to problems. And number 1 is to clearly identify what it is, the problem that or the issue that we're working with that we want a solution for. Then 2, we identify and make a list of all the possible answers to that issue. We write them down. And then 3, with our subconscious, we work through, and 90% of the time, we come up with a solution that works just great for us. But it's when we get stuck, we find ourselves starting to repeat possible solutions. We say, no, that's not right. I want something different. And we just keep kind of pounding the table. And oftentimes we might be on a walk, riding our bike, we're not thinking about the problem, and we get this blinding flash of the obvious. Just comes to us out of the blue. What if you just did da-da-da-da-da-da-da? You go, oh my God. And we'll often say, why didn't I think of that? Well, if I didn't think of it, who thought of it? So these are answers that come to us through the supraconscious. Now, when we know we have that power available to us, we can use this 5-step process where we identify the problem, we look at possible solutions, we work with the subconscious to try to get a solution. When we don't get the solution that we're looking for, and when is that? When we find ourselves starting to repeat potential solutions, but they're not the ones that we're looking for, we then turn it over, step 4, to the supraconscious and say, supraconscious, I'd like you to please find me an answer to this thing, and we make sure we state it very carefully. And then step 5 is very important. We get busy doing something else, and we don't take the problem back. We trust that the supraconscious will provide that solution for us. When I was in Portland, Oregon, as president of a company one time, we were stumbling on a marketing issue, and we didn't seem to be able to find the solution we were looking for. So on a Friday, I brought our 6 top marketing people into my office, and I brought our corporate secretary, we called him in those days, a young lady, and I said, look, everybody, we've really worked on this problem long enough. Here's what I'd like you to do. Please turn this over to your supraconscious. They'd all been trained in these materials. I said, let's turn this over to our supraconscious. We're going to get together at 10 o'clock on Monday morning, and we'll have a perfect solution to what we've been stumbling over. So we got together at 10 o'clock Monday morning, and I said, okay, what's the solution to this problem? And our little corporate secretary, she couldn't spell marketing. She says, Jim, can I ask a question? I said, yeah, go ahead. Well, she says, I was working in the garden over the weekend, and I thought, what if we did, number 1, that's number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, and all the marketing geniuses' eyeballs got as big as saucers, like, oh my God, including myself, that's the perfect solution. That is the perfect solution. And so when and we've all had experiences like that, and when we know that we have this toolkit that in fact, let me share an example that every listener to this program, I'll bet, has had. Let's say we're going on a trip tomorrow morning. We normally get up at 6 in the morning, but we have an early morning flight. We're going to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. And we don't necessarily go to bed earlier. We might go to bed later because we're doing last minute packing and changing things and whatever. So I set my alarm for 4 o'clock, and then I call the person I'm traveling with. And I say, would you please call me at 4? I want to make sure I don't oversleep. Yeah, I'll call you at 4. So we get to sleep, and we are in a dark, dead sleep. I mean, we wake up with a start. and the room was black. It's still, there's no noise. We turn, we look over at the alarm clock, and the minute hand is going from 3:59 to 4. Then zzz, the alarm goes, the phone rings, zzz, you know. But who, you know, I'm asking the audience, who has not had that experience? And that's the Supra Conscious working on our behalf. And it's fun. I mean, this needs to be fun. We have, again, if the number one affirmation is I love myself unconditionally, then we're not going to beat ourselves up for some changes we might want to make. We'll say, you know, I do the best I can, and I had a belief about something, doing something a certain way, and I've decided I'm going to change that. And that doesn't make me a bad girl or a bad boy, and I'm just going to make the change. And I've got a toolkit now and how to do that. So we do it joyfully. And again, that number one affirmation, I love myself or like myself unconditionally. And but the Supra Conscious is something we introduce in the book that is new in this area of study that was not part of what Dr. Murphy taught when he wrote his book in 1963.
Awesome. Thank you.
That's all great. Well, I think we're just about out of time here, and this has been great, Jim, hearing you talk about your book and your expansion on Dr. Murphy's work and what you've done with it in your life. It's very inspirational, and it's very doable for people. This is not a hard system.
Well, I've been very blessed to have been introduced to this, and I appreciate my friends insisting that my wife and I go through this training a number of years ago, and it's really been great. And I've had so many other people that have provided additional data, and I love it, and it's fun, and I'm happy to share it. Why wouldn't I share it? As people have shared it with me, I want to share it with everybody that sees value in these tools that we're talking about.
This is great. So again, for the listeners, the website is cjamesjensen, JENSEN.com. You can find out a lot of information about the system and the book. And again, the book is Expand the Power of Your Subconscious Mind by C. James Jensen. So thank you again for being on the show today. This has been wonderful.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you, Violet, for inviting me to be on the program. And I'm going to send right now a big bunch of love like that to all of our audience. So we love all of you unconditionally.
Love
great.
that. Well, thanks for being on the show. I'm so glad that we were able to get you on. Dave was excited when I sent him the info. He's like, I know, Jim. This will be great.
Here we are.
And
Right?
here we are. This is great. Well, to all our listeners, thank you for listening to the show today. And please stay with us for some messages from several of our practitioners at DYSG that you'll probably find very interesting. Have a great week.
Hi, my name is Tiffany, and I am an intuitive person along with being a meditation and Qigong teacher. I have traveled the world to meet amazing teachers, and they have taught me all about Qi energy and the Taoist way. Now, these teachers taught me a beautiful practice called Sum Thought Meditation. Now, this is an ancient Chinese wisdom of understanding the Dantian energy elixir. And I'm telling you, this energy elixir is crazy powerful. This ancient Taoist Chinese practice has changed my life, and I want to share this transformational energy with you. Do you want to heal mind, body, spirit? Do you want to break and change old patterns that hold you back? Do you want to open up your heart chakra and move more love into your life? Do you want more joy in just being you? Do you want to tap into your higher self? Then come explore this ancient Taoist wisdom with me. This isn't just a meditation class. We connect, we move, we explore, and we create. Come join me every Monday morning from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. at Discover Your Spiritual Gifts. I look so forward to seeing you there.
Hi, I'm Nikki Milton. I am the Center Manager and Marketing Manager here at Discover Your Spiritual Gifts. I'm here 2 days a week on Mondays and Fridays, marketing this beautiful center and making sure that the center is up to standard for all you lovely guests who will hopefully come and visit us soon. I also own a content marketing agency, so I'm a teacher here in the space because I have a real passion for helping the spiritual business owners in this community learn how to brand and market their businesses. So I run a business class series every year on branding and marketing and social media classes, as well as a full strategy workshop towards the end of the year to help you get your business in line for the upcoming year. And that is what I do here at Discover Your Spiritual Gifts.
Hi, this is Dave Barnett, better known as Dave the Mystic. I am a long-term aerospace engineer, but back in 1983, I had some events in my life that forced me to reconsider how reality works. I became involved in healing, channeling, meditation, and developing my psychic gifts. Over the years, I continued to work with these, and I had a wonderful opportunity in 2003 to take 4 years and really delve into all forms of healing, and along the way, other gifts showed up. I am now working at the center full-time, and I'm happy to offer work with past lives, with working with subconscious core beliefs. I do a lot of work with energy and entity clearing, and since I do this always long distance, I can do it all over the world. I also work with karma burning and with soul retrieval and soul splinter return. I'd be happy to work with you. Please feel free to give me a call here at the center, and we can set up an appointment. My direct phone number is 303-902-5323. Thank you and have a great day.
Discover connection, awaken sacredness, become empowered. Join us for our show on Blog Talk Radio.